Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion advised. And here we are at last. You have heard the call of the gods and rallied to this banner looking for a new breed of uncensored Warcraft news and opinion. Having tired of the existing scene, curious to walk a different path, you find yourself here wondering just what in the hell have you found? And so, I bid you welcome to the premiere episode of Unshackled Fury. This is the show for those who don't belong to the clique. We don't throw ourselves parties or get priority treatment for fancy badges and free gear. No, we have come together on this day and from every day henceforth to kick some ass in the world of Warcraft and have a damn good time doing it. And it is with great pleasure that I am your voice in this madness, Berzerker. For this first show, we're going to be talking about the final content patch of Warlords of Draenor, the coming glory, of course, that is BlizzCon, and we'll finish up with my BlizzCon wishlist and a drinking game to power us through this hallowed marathon of gaming and revelry. But first, there is one particular issue with our favorite yearly congregation that I am all fired up about. So let's get into it. Let's rage! Since 2007, and with that year being the only exception, I have tried to obtain tickets to BlizzCon every year during the furious event that is the release of tickets. Every year I sit, eyes glued to the screen, mashing F5 with the speed of a pro StarCraft player, desperately hoping not to fuck up my typing once the page goes live. And every year I sit, waiting in the queue. We all sit and wait and watch as the queue winds down, and so does the tickets. If you were in the 10,000s or below, back in the old days anyway, you had a chance. If not, well, playing some Fail-Ocalypse was pretty much your only refuge. And every year I've watched as the tickets slip away, lost to the fortunate, the lucky, those who would instead embody my spirit on the convention floor. But last year, for the first and only time, I was the victor. And without reservation, I admit that like a new father or that dude in the crying game, I wept. And the reason I tell you this is not simply to tell you how much of a baby I am. No, I tell you this to make sure that you really understand how goddamn hard it is to get these tickets. Now, for those who have ever been to BlizzCon, for those that have ever watched BlizzCon, and for those who have ever just read about BlizzCon, there is one panel at the convention for us Warcraft people that stands tall above the rest. Yes, the contests are fun, and the opening ceremony is generally pretty bitchin', but the one panel that gives us a chance to touch the faces of the Blizzard gods themselves, sometimes literally, I suppose, is none other than the question and answer panel. That's right, the good old Q&A. This is the one opportunity for us, the average, faceless, workaday player, to ask them direct questions about our digital home and right to their terrified, shining faces. And for those of us fortunate to have gone to BlizzCon, we have seen how people will line up hours before this panel even starts just for the opportunity to ask their questions. These people will target the closest seats to the microphone in earlier panels, jockeying for positions, saving numerous seats at a time, which, by the way, if you are one of those assholes who runs into the main hall and saves like 10 seats at a time and tells everybody to get lost, from all of us, fuck you. Anyway, these people will camp out for as long as they have to, sacrificing all other panels and fun, and just so they can speak the words they so desperately must express to the makers. And after all the waiting and traveling and scratching and clawing, running and scheming, that moment comes at last. They step up to the microphone, sweating, voices shaking, and what happens? These mouth-breathing, flat-headed rectal warts ask the dumbest fucking questions on the face of the earth. You have one chance to ask the makers of your beloved game any question you desire, and you choose to ask how long they intend the flight from Northern Kalimdor to Uldum to be? You ask a class question after being told specifically not to? I don't care about your pets, your minions, your guildies, or your goddamn life story. No, you don't get a follow-up question. Ask your one question and GTFO! Jesus! People, I am all for peace, love, and community. But for the sake of the gods, we have got to do a better job of policing ourselves. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and the plague of bad questions spewing from our collective mouths at this panel is just stunning. Listen, nobody wants to hear your pedantic rundown of your class. What we want to hear are thoughtfully considered questions that concern the affairs of multiple parties. Consider that for every one of your shitty-ass questions, there is some amazing question waiting in the back of that line, never to see the light of day, because you want to argue with Celestalon about whether or not the nerfing of your favorite OP macro is fair, you goddamn shit-eating gremlin. We can do better. And we must. Because we owe it to ourselves and each other. So please, if ever you are in a position to be fortunate enough to ask a question at the BlizzCon Q&A, use that time wisely. Consider that your voice can be the one who speaks not just for yourself or your class, but the masses of people who play this game. You can either be the hero to millions or the next bringer of fetid Q&A putrescence who should be stripped of your account and relegated to a lifetime of playing E.T. the Extraterrestrial on Atari. The choice is yours. Don't waste it. Enough of that. Let's get on to our latest updates in BlizzCon prep in this week's installment of The News and the Blues. I need a drink. And now it's time for News and the Blues. Ladies and gentlemen, the silly season of Warcraft has officially begun, as Blizzard recently announced that we will have one more sort of content-ish patch prior to Legions, patch 6.2.3 for you technical types, and it does a couple of things to get us back in the fold of running dungeons, providing a few rewards, and in turn, resurrects a feature from Mists of Pandaria that I liked quite a bit, even if it did prove to be controversial in a way I'm not sure was intended. Although this isn't the sort of final patch most players would want with a plethora of new and exciting content, Blizzard seems to be trying very hard with this patch to right the ship in terms of dungeon replay value, as it is no secret that dungeons have almost disappeared from regular gameplay for most players. You may remember that the developers hinted some months ago that there might not be more content to come, and this sort of halfway measure seems to fit the bill for their contradictory responses. So, what do we get? Well, Time Walking is going to get a good bit of expanding with Grim Patrol, Stonecore, Losity of Tol'vir, the Vortex Pinnacle, Throne of Tides, and End Time, all from Cataclysm, as well as two of my all-time favorites, Pit of Saran from Wrath of the Lich King and Magister's Terrace from Burning Crusade, all getting added. Better still, there's a fucking mount! Hooray! And what a badass ride this mother is. If you haven't seen it yourself, you need to pop over to Wowhead, or wherever you want, and check out the Infinite Dragonflight mount. I'm a sucker for a good mount. And this sweet baby just might make me switch out the time-lost proto-drake that's ferried my heavy ass around all these years. Because boy, is it pretty sweet. So anyway, this mount has a chance to draw from all time-walking dungeon bosses. So not only do you get time-walking badges, you get a sweet ride. And speaking of badges, for a time they ruled our every move, decided every upgrade, and for a time they lay dormant. But hold on to your butts, because Valor badges are back. Yes, those purple doohickeys have returned, and so have our space mummy friends to aid us in all of our upgrade needs. Act now, and for every heroic and mythic dungeon, bonus event, and first Raid Finder run of the week, you can once again earn and hoard these trophies and trade them for an up to 10 item level increase on a piece of gear of your choice. But we're not done yet. From the launch of the patch until some undetermined time in the future, you can score yourself a sweet magic Grove Warden, simply for downing Archimond on heroic or mythic. Disclaimer, there's some other shit about cross-rel mythic rating and PvP, but I don't give a shit about that, so feel free to listen to some other corporatized show for more. Valor badges are back. And while some people may go screaming into the night about the return of D's and the Valor upgrades, sanctimoniously decrying the further perversion of our game, I welcome this with open arms. With no exception that I can think of, Blizzard has always added some sort of buff or heavy across-the-board nerf to the last raid of each expansion, and this appears to be the way that Warlords will make its final run. And no, the recent nerfs to Hellfire Citadel do not count, because I'm talking about a 20% nerf across the board, like what happened at the end of Burning Crusade, or the increased buff that we saw at the end of Icecrown Citadel, and that was not what happened here. For teams that are still progressing through any difficulty, this might be the thing that gets them over the hump they are on, which should be about 95% of all raid teams who haven't cleared Mythic. And while teams like mine and others will no doubt benefit from this addition, I would like to add one word of caution about the reintroduced upgrade system, and it's the sort of controversial bit that I mentioned earlier. Do not equate your ability to clear heroic and mythic bosses with bloated gear with the ability to progress through these difficulties naturally. The absolute obliteration of teams this expansion with stars in their eyes about being mythic raiders from the start was as stunning as it was hilarious. All of a sudden, teams that had steamrolled Siege of Orgrimmar on upgraded gear believed they were ready to handle the demands of elite raiding, and holy shit, what a slaughter. So please, enjoy this end of expansion perk. I know I will, but don't lose perspective. All in all, this seems like a great little patch to end the expansion with, and it builds on things that we know and gives us a bit of a content bump until Legion. And trust me, Ruby Sanctum, this is not. The real story is, of course, BlizzCon, as we're heading into it here on November the 6th. It's right around the corner. Can you feel it? I know my body is ready. How about you? The time draws near, my friends, for us to once again revel in the house of our beloved games publisher and bask in the glow of all the glory that is to come. And with the growth of that house in recent years, with the establishment of Hearthstone and now Overwatch as part of the roster, the number of Warcraft panels at BlizzCon has literally been cut in half from what it was just 2 years ago, from 8 now down to 4. And it looks like this year we will also see the death of the live raid, which I think a number of people really enjoyed. Perhaps the internal issues with the world's top guilds took that off the table? Well, maybe they're not quite ready to show a Legion raid in action. Who knows? What I do know is that we still have the most number of panels during the convention in comparison to the other franchises. Hell, poor Diablo only gets one. And those poor bastards, well, their setup is just a single little booth in the back of one of the halls. So we are indeed the lucky ones, in case you need any perspective on that. So what do we get? Well, we get 4 panels in all, and most of them are about Legion, as you could probably guess. Our first panel will be right after the opening ceremony on Friday morning, and it will be called World of Warcraft Legion World and Content Overview. This panel promises to take us on a tour of the new zones, dungeons and raids, a look at the overall story, and I'm quoting them here, a sneak peek at upcoming features. I don't know about you people, but this screams Dance Studio to me. Or not. It could also be the new transmog system, too. Who knows? At any rate, this panel is scheduled to be one of the longest of the entire weekend at what I'm sure will be a very full 90 minutes. And like many, I'm very excited to be provided with a more in-depth look at not only where in the hell we are going, but of course why. With the established look and lore of the Burning Legion, perhaps my favorite one, I might discuss this in a future lore segment, potentially. There will likely be a familiarity with certain aesthetics and themes they employ throughout the expansion. What I'm curious to see is how these Blizzard artists are really pushing themselves. Having seen the preview of the artifact weapon system we were given back at the Legion announcement, which looks to be very robust and insanely beautiful, there is a sense that the Blizzard artists are really challenging themselves this go-around. And combined with the way that they have been creating some of the most beautiful scenery over the last 2 expansions, my eyes are certainly ready for the feast to come, and yours should be too. But more than anything, it's the why of these things that keeps us coming, and this should be a good chance for them to dive into the Legion story and start talking more about what happens as we go about saving Azeroth once more. We know at the start there's a massive Legion invasion, we know we have some kind of epic battle at the Broken Isles, Broken Shore, and we know that we are about to lose some major lore figures as a result of that battle. But following these early events, we really don't know that much. The fabric of this expansion must weave in the fallout from that, plus the introduction of the Demon Hunters, the resurrection of Illidan, the rise or creation of class orders and their roles, and probably a half dozen other things we don't even know about yet. Blizzard has always shined when it comes to this aspect of their games, if nothing else. And even though I suspect Overwatch has captured some of the attention of the Senior Vice President of Creative Development, Mr. Chris Metzen himself, I highly doubt the story for this expansion will be unfulfilling. Along with filling out that story, this should be the panel where we hear more about the class orders, and since we only have a few known class order halls, maybe they'll give us a peek at those too. And while I know that this is already set in stone, my one sincere hope, and yes, this is happening, is that Blizzard, for the first time in a long time, doesn't fuck over the Alliance. I'm pretty sure we're all about to lose a major lore figure, or 2, or 3, or more, and that's fine. Just make it equal across the board. If the Alliance has to lose a warrior king, which we better not, then there had better be a dead green Jesus lying around somewhere. At any rate, this panel should provide us with a great deal of information about our next destination, and where this panel will discuss the where and the why, the compendium panel on Saturday will discuss the how. The main panel stage will feature the Game Systems panel, where the devs will provide an in-depth look at the major features in Legion, including a look at the Demon Hunters, and existing classes, artifacts, itemization, professions, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I know a lot of people are anxious to see this one, myself included, if nothing else but to see the Demon Hunters and the artifacts. I truly believe that these 2 components are the most compelling of the next expansion, and frankly, I need more. So far, we've seen that Demon Hunters are sprinting, eye-beaming, double-jumping, see-through wall, glaive-wielding badasses, but that's mostly just fluff. Delicious, half-chub-inducing fluff, but fluff nonetheless. This panel needs to give us more specifics about the Demonic Fury resources, the types of rotations they are building around, insight into the melee spec Havoc and the tanking spec Vengeance, how this class will overlap with existing classes, because there's certainly enough drama there, and any changes that have been made since the reveal. While their backstory looks to be pretty fun, and being the second hero class is a cool bonus, in the end, it is the gameplay and the effectiveness of the role the class plays that provides lasting playability. So let's see what you've got, devs. Now, when it comes to new systems in Warcraft, the first question that most people ask is, what am I getting out of all this? And no new system illustrates that better or more precisely than the artifact weapon system. I know for months I personally have been screaming, where is my Titan's Grip Artifact of Legend? And I know I am not alone. So far we know of the few artifacts that have been announced, Ashbringer for Paladins, Doombringer for Shaman being the most prominent, but what about the rest? There are huge lore implications with these weapons, and while some light on this may be shed in the content overview panel, I get the sense that most of us are chomping at the bit to see what we'll either be enjoying or decrying for the duration of the next couple of years, regardless of the in-game reasoning. Where else will we be seeking these weapons besides the wreckage of an epic battle? What ancient crypts will be unlocked, seas explored, lands traversed, and challenges overcome to obtain our personal artifact of lore. And with 36 individual weapons to be created, one for each spec of each class, the Warcraft team has put indeed a sizable challenge in front of themselves. But this challenge goes hand in hand with something that developers have talked about a few times, which is that with the addition of class orders, class halls, artifact weapons, and with the class changes this panel is sure to discuss, there is an honest attempt to end the class homogeny that has crept further into the game and give rise to an improved class fantasy. In recent interviews, the developers have hinted at another revamp coming of classes we already know and love, but with the intention of a robust reconstitution of specializations to enhance the fantasy of playing one particular class or another. This panel should provide us with the specifics, but it sounds as though, so far, that they are creating new specs, deleting others, and establishing wholly new resources in order to align each spec with its intended class fantasy, more so than what we have currently. For the cynics in the room, I know this is a fucking pain in the ass. I get it. New rotations, new systems, blah, 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 blah. I know. But for the rest of us, who still enjoy this game as a fantasy and not an exercise in applied mathematics, this is the kind of attention Blizzard needs to be applying to their player base. As I said before, the one thing that Blizzard does better than anyone in the business is storytelling. Immersion in the story as an abstract player is one thing, but to enhance the role in which we play that story provides a secondary layer of storytelling that creates an experience which is second to none. If we enjoy what we play, and we enjoy the things we do as we play, we continue to hunger for more. And that is exactly the symbiotic relationship we need between us, the world's saviors, and them, the world builders, to keep this party rolling. Now, outside of these two panels, we will also have a third Legion panel titled World of Warcraft Cinematics, The Road to Legion. But when you look at the schedule to see exactly what cinematic we will be hearing about, the description is pretty vague, saying only, Blizzard's cinematic artists share a behind-the-scenes look at how they bring some of Azeroth's most iconic figures to life. So, get your drinking game card ready, because my tinfoil hat tells me we're about to get one hot face full of Legion intro cinematic at the opening ceremony. But, let's face it, even if it's just the one with Illidan and Gul'dan, that alone would be pretty satisfying, because by the power of the gods, is that thing just fucking awesome. There really is not a standard format for Blizzard to release their intro cinematics as a whole, with some simply being loaded to YouTube, others at press events, and some coming at BlizzCon. So I hope that with all of the other announcements they have dropped outside of the convention, this is one that they have saved for us. But if not, Blizzard cinematics are the stuff of legend after all, and it's always a great time listening to these artists tell their story. From a technical and thematic standpoint, this type of panel provides great insights to us as players and perhaps current and future creators as to how the cinematic team creates pieces that even Hollywood has to tip a cap to. Make sure that you hit the bio break and refresh the beverage after the content overview panel, because you will not want to miss this one happening right afterward. And last, but certainly not least, the fourth and final Warcraft panel of the convention is, of course, our Q&A, which I mentioned earlier. Honestly, I think I've said enough about this panel already, so I hope that this gives you a sense of what to expect at BlizzCon with the 4 panels that we'll be receiving on our end from the Warcraft side, as well as the contest panel, the intro panel. There's a whole mess of other things going on, particularly the esports. You have to check out the esports, the rise in StarCraft tournaments, Hearthstone tournaments, now Heroes of the Storm tournaments. They have just blown me away. Blizzard is spending a lot of time and resources into expanding those divisions, and make sure that you guys check those out. So I hope you have a happy BlizzCon, and let's get on to our third and final segment of the week. As this is the first full show of Unshackled Fury, I should probably explain that while the first 2 segments of the show will likely always be Let's Rage and the news and the blues, The third segment is intended to be somewhat of a wild card. Some of the things I'll do in this segment may become recurring bits, while others may be one and done forever, which I suppose could be said for this show entirely, but who knows. I will say that I do plan on having a lore segment here from time to time, as I mentioned earlier, and yes, the erotic fan fiction reading. But if you came here for that this week, I'm sorry to disappoint. This isn't the week, and you're going to have to wait just a little longer. But don't worry, I hear anticipation makes it all the better. Anyway, for this week, since BlizzCon is essentially our Christmas, I wanted to lay out my BlizzCon wish list for this year. And since no family holiday is complete without some form of inebriation, I also have something else for you, a drinking game. So let's go. Which one? A few BlizzCons ago, Blizzard had nothing to announce, as some of you may remember. We all eagerly awaited to see the opening ceremony and check if our suspicions were correct, which sadly they were. Chris Metzen took the stage and proceeded to give us the most endearing but truly what-the-fuck opening we've ever had, with a speech and corresponding slideshow about what it is to be a geek. The sort of call-in response was, "Geek is," and holy shit did this bomb. Like bad, like Adventures of Pluto Nash bad. I'm sure that the Blizzard crew has learned from this, but you never know how these things turn out. So for Wish 1, my wish is no geek is speech. Let us never again be subject to a BlizzCon devoid of these big announcements. So if not the geek is speech, then what exactly? Well, for Wish 2, I hope we see what so many of us have waited so goddamn long for. The full Warcraft movie trailer. And as a bonus, let's call it Wish 2.5. How about you show us the full Legion intro cinematic too, eh, Blizz? Star Wars just had their big moment. Let's see if we can start generating one of our own. So Wish 2 and Wish 2.5, we'll say the movie trailer and Legion cinematic being shown in their full and righteous glory. Now for Wish 3, I want to start off with an admission. I suck at StarCraft. No lie. My actions per minute are probably about 30 to 35 on a good day. But that does not mean I don't enjoy the hell out of that game and rooting for anyone that plays my favorite race, the Terrans. Something about tanks and guns, it's, yes, all very American, so maybe that's the appeal. But rare is the chance for me to see a Terran player in StarCraft tournaments. Sure, they are there, and second in total number behind the Protoss, but it never seems like they make it to the end. So for Wish 3, I would like to see a Terran in the StarCraft Grand Finals. So to Fantasy, Polt, Dream, Innovation, and Maru, don't let me down, boys. So Wish 4. As of now, I am not a fan of our musical choice for this closing ceremony, Linkin Park. The early to mid-2000s was one of the worst musical eras ever, and this holdover from that time is not exactly what you'd call my favorite. I knew this was a possibility some time ago based on some schedules that I'd looked at and hoped that maybe we'd get the Chester Bennington-led version of Stone Temple Pilots instead, but alas, we get Linkin Park. That said, I've been to a lot of metal shows over the years, and if it's one thing that I've learned is that you truly have to reserve judgment about a band until you see them live. And so it is my hope with Wish 4 that in the end, see what I did there? Linkin Park puts on a great live show and surpasses all expectations. And finally, Wish 5. Ultimately, you never know what to expect from Blizzard. This company has become the standard bearer for keeping secrets from its player base, and it is with Wish 5 that I hope we are introduced to something totally unexpected. Now, we do a pretty good job as a community of rooting things out, putting clues together, solving little digital mysteries, but time and again, Blizzard has proven their ability to shield much of what they are not ready to see from the light of day. Give us something secret, Blizz, just a taste. Let our imaginations run wild and keep us wanting more. Let this BlizzCon be yet another one for the pages of history. So that concludes my wish list, and to finish up this week's first and premiere episode of Unshackled Fury, I would now like to bring you your official 2015 BlizzCon drinking game. So, BlizzCon is like any other family gathering, and as such, we must not remain sober in order to survive. So to aid us in this quest for survival, I now bring you this official drinking game, unofficial, I don't know who signs off on these things, but it's my official drinking game. And depending on how many I hit and miss along this list, you may need a keg and a case of whiskey on hand, but no matter what, enjoy the festivities, and here we go. First up, opening ceremonies. Take one swig every time Mike Morheim loses his place on the teleprompter due to surprise applause. Take a shot and chug a beer for any new title announced. Take a sip every time Chris Metzen says he loves something. Take a shot every time Chris Metzen promises something good for the Alliance. Take a shot for any apologies to Diablo players. Take a sip every time anyone mentions how many people are playing Hearthstone. Take a swig for any impression of a Protoss saying, "My life for ire." Take a shot for an Overwatch release date. Take 2 shots for the Legion release date. Take a shot for either the Legion cinematic and or the Warcraft movie trailer, and drink a beer during the duration of applause following the showing of either the Legion cinematic and or the Warcraft movie trailer. This also goes for the cinematics panel. Take 2 shots if nothing new is announced or shown, because that means all the good announcements were blown elsewhere for no good damn reason. Next, Legion World and Content Overview Panel. Take a sip for every reference to Illidan. Take a swig every time the word shocking is used. Take a sip for every new name of any place, person, or thing that is mentioned. Take a shot for any reintroduced dungeon or raid bosses. Take 2 shots if any faction leader is a raid boss, because I'm looking at you, Sylvanas. Take a swig for each reference to an old god. Take a shot if there is any admittance to the confusion over the Draenor storyline. Take a shot for a look at the new transmog system. Take 5 shots if there's a dance studio. All right. Next, cinematics, The Road to Legion. Take a sip every time the word creative, or some derivation thereof, is used. Drink a beer during the duration of any clip showing Blizzard employees who were filmed doing anything for a cinematic as a form of low-budget mocap. Take a swig for every mention about the payoff of the growth of the team. This also applies to the systems panel. Take a shot for any mention of pushing boundaries. Take a sip for each tech speak word that nobody outside of the industry knows. Take a sip every time they show Illidan in any form, and take a shot if Varian Wrynn, my king and yours too, appears. Next, Legion Game Panel System. Take a swig for every mention of class fantasy. Take a swig for every new artifact weapon announced on stage. Take a sip for any customization shown. Take a swig for every new class hall announced on stage. Take 2 shots for the announcement of any Titan's Grip warrior artifact, because you know I will. Take a swig for every new spec announced. Take a shot if your resource and or spec was changed. You will thank me. Take a sip for every new Demon Hunter ability announced on stage. Take a shot in the event any new secondary stats get announced. Rip Multi-Strike. Take a sip for every new announced profession change. And take a shot for any new profession. Next, World of Warcraft Q&A. Just drink. I don't give a shit. Just get shithoused, because that's the only way we'll all survive that one. Last but not least, esports contest and a few wildcards thrown in. Drink a beer during the duration of any segment where the esports announcers are talking over each other and so fast that they become incomprehensible. Take a shot anytime the PowerPoint presentation for a panel fucks up. Take a shot for any use of the term Dämonenjäger. Take a swig for every gender-bent costume. Take a shot if anyone falls. Take a sip for every costume. Take a shot for every hipster jug band that plays as part of the talent show. Take a sip for every costume containing cleavage, men's or women's. And finally, take 2 shots of warm store-brand vodka and stab a fork in your eye before the closing band hits. At least when you feel the pain, it will be by your own hand and not the residue of historically awful mid-2000s rock that has been bestowed upon you. Well, that's the show for this week. Thanks for checking out the first full episode of Unshackled Fury. I hope I've met at least some of the expectations that I've laid out. As I said in my preview, my plan is to have a new show every couple of weeks, so it'll be every other Monday starting this week. So please feel free to follow the show on SoundCloud or iTunes if I ever figure it out. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Berzerker Rage for all further updates. You can also email me at unshackledfuryshow@gmail.com should you so desire. Again, thank you for listening. Happy Hallows End and happy BlizzCon to you all. Strength and honor.